He took part in Davy Jones' amateur theatricals at Whitsun. Of the marriages this year, the gossip's favourite has been Anne Hathaway's. With a small dowry, she could not hope for much, and so she has married William, the 18-year-old son of the luckless John Shakespeare. Once our high bailiff, he has fallen on very hard times, and is beset by all sorts of trouble. The marriage was rather a hasty one, as they're expecting their first child in May, but let us hope that, being 8 years older than William, she will bring a steadying influence to bear. But there's a mystery surrounding Shakespeare's marriage to Anne Hathaway that has perplexed historians for more than a century. In the late 19th century, the Reverend T.P. Whatley discovered an entry in the Worcester Cathedral records showing that on the 27th of November 1582, a licence was issued to William Shakespeare to marry Anne Whately of Temple Grafton. The following day, this licence appears to have been revoked when two yeomen from Shottery came to Worcester and insisted that Shakespeare was already betrothed to Anne Hathaway. So who was this other Anne? Some claim that Whately was simply a misspelling of Hathaway, and that they are one and the same. The documentary evidence, though, suggests that they were, in fact, different people, which has led to no end of speculation. The most popular theory is that Anne Whately lived at Hilborough Manor, near Temple Grafton, where young William met and fell madly in love with her. But he had already wooed Anne Hathaway of Shottery, who was carrying his child. The Hathaway family insisted that the wayward Will marry their Anne, and so he was forced to forsake his true love. The broken-hearted Anne Whately fled to Italy to grieve for her lost paramour. But according to some accounts, that wasn't the end of the romance. Shakespeare's fascination for the theatre led him to London, and there's evidence that Anne Whately shows up in London at about the same time. It claimed that her knowledge of Italy was used in Shakespeare's Italian plays, and that she inspired some of his female characters. More dramatically, it has even been suggested that she was the true author of Shakespeare's works. Whether it was with or without Anne Whately's influence, William Shakespeare found fame and fortune in London and returned to Stratford a rich man. He became one of the wealthiest landowners in the area and bought New Place, the second biggest house in Stratford, from William Underhill, who also owned the Idlicott estate. The acquisition was a prestigious one for Shakespeare, but the deal proved catastrophic for the Underhill family. William Underhill's eldest son, Fulke, was so enraged at the disposal of his inheritance that he poisoned his father. Fulke Underhill was convicted of murder and subsequently executed at Warwick. As it turned out, Shakespeare's end at the age of 52 was also a little untimely. On the 22nd of April, 1616, friends gathered at New Place to celebrate the bard's birthday the following day. Among them were the well-known writers Michael Drayton and Ben Jonson. According to the Vicar of Stratford, Shakespeare, Drayton and Ben Jonson had a merry meeting, and it seems drank too hard, for Shakespeare died of a fever there contracted. That Shakespeare died on his birthday is ironic enough, but there's another quirk of fate connected with his death on April 23rd. This is also the feast day of another iconic English figure. As any patriotic Englishman will know, April the 23rd is St. George's Day, and, according to a local legend, England's patron saint met his end near Stratford. St. George's, Elm Lane, links Bidford and Wixford, and it's said that the hero was killed here when an elm stake was thrust into his heart. He was buried alongside the road, and an elm tree grew from the stake. A romantic notion indeed. Unfortunately, it's as fanciful as any tale the bard could have woven, because St. George almost certainly never set foot in the land that embraced him. According to tradition, he was a Roman soldier from Syria who converted to Christianity. When the Roman Emperor Diocletian ordered that every Christian in the army should renounce the faith, he refused and was executed to become one of Christianity's early martyrs in the East. As time passed, the story of St. George and the classical legend of Perseus and Andromeda involving the rescue of a young maiden from a terrifying beast became intertwined. Crusaders in the Holy Land adopted St. George as their patron saint. Returning knights brought back tales of a young warrior slaying a dragon under the banner of a scarlet cross, and the legend of St. George became part of English folklore, reenacted in historic pageants across the land. He was finally adopted as England's patron saint in the 14th century. Of course, many of those young English knights who went off to fight in the Holy Land died there, and in the entrance to Wootton Waughan's ancient church is a poignant reminder of some of those who died far from home. It became customary for those setting out for the Holy Land to carve a vertical line in the stone of their local church. When they returned, they carved a horizontal line, thus completing the cross. The uncompleted crosses survive as sad reminders of those who never returned. Marks on many other old Warwickshire churches have a rather less poignant story to tell. In 1363, Edward III issued a decree that every able-bodied Englishman should practice archery on Sundays and holidays. In many villages, butts were set up in the churchyard for target practice, and archers often sharpened their arrows on the stone of the church itself. Marks like these were created by men who won the famous victory at Agincourt in 1415. The most famous archer of them all, of course, is Robin Hood. While Nottingham has claimed the legendary outlaw as its own, some believe that he should belong to Stratford. An anonymous account of the life of Robin Hood, held in the British Museum, states that the famous outlaw was born in Locksley, but which Locksley is not clear. There are two candidates, Locksley in South Yorkshire or Locksley near Stratford. The case for our Locksley was made in 1864 by historian J.R. Planche, who wrote a paper called A Ramble with Robin Hood, in which he claimed that Robin Hood was actually Robert Fitzodo, the Lord of Locksley in Warwickshire, who fell foul of the law and fled to the forest. In truth, Yorkshire has a stronger claim, but in the absence of any firm evidence, our own Locksley is still in the frame, although Nottingham is unlikely to give him up without a fight.